Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Georgia Strait Weeklies. I'm Polly from WOW TV, and today with me is the editor-in-chief at Strait newspaper, Charlie Smith. Hi, Charlie. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Polly. I'm very happy to be back on WOW TV.
Yeah. So this week we know that the Northern Gateway pipeline has been approved. So we want to know a little bit more about that. What is going on and what is it about? Please tell us about it.
Yeah, the Northern Gateway pipeline is a 1,177-kilometer pipeline. It's a proposal. It hasn't been built yet, and it will go from Alberta to Kitimat, which is on northern coast of British Columbia. And it will carry bitumen, which is oil. It can be made into oil. It's not technically oil, one way. And then there's another pipeline going the other way, which carries condensate, which is a way to work with the bitumen to make it so it can be transported through pipelines. And then this will be shipped to Asia, a lot of it possibly to China, where there's great demand for oil as the number of automobiles and motor vehicles has increased. So it's basically a plan to export Canadian oil to China. Right now, all of the Canadian oil is exported to the United States.
All right, that's really nice to know about that as well. We just wondered that what are some of the opinions from different parties and controversies about this issue?
Yeah, one of the issues is that people in Alberta are very supportive of this because when you sell oil, the revenue goes to the Alberta government for the most part. And the jobs are also going to be in Alberta where they actually extract the oil. The issue in British Columbia is there aren't very many jobs. They build a pipeline across and they ship it, but we take all the risks in British Columbia environmentally. If there's an oil spill, if the pipeline ruptures, we have a very sensitive coast. The ships would be going through a very narrow channel. It's called Douglas Channel out of Kitimat and then into Queen Charlotte Sound, Hecate Strait. There's a lot of whales, there's sea lions, there's enormous marine life, there's fisheries, there's First Nations that rely on these the fish for their livelihood, and there's a big fear in British Columbia that one day there will be an accident like the Exxon Valdez in 1989. So you've got British Columbians, by and large, a lot of them are opposed. Albertans are very much in favor. So the Prime Minister made a decision and he said, yes, we will, along with his cabinet, approve this pipeline with 209 conditions that have to be met. But at the same time, there's tremendous opposition, and it remains to be seen whether the pipeline will actually be built. And the company is called Enbridge.
Okay, so if people want to know a little bit more about these 209 reasons, then where can they know about it, where they can find out about it?
Yeah, the conditions were done by something called the Joint Review Panel, which was a combination of the National Energy Board and the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency. It's very complicated, but basically what they've said is Enbridge has to meet these conditions, but the Harper government has given a green light to the pipeline to be built. The NDP federally and the Liberals federally and the Green Party federally, which are the three other parties in Parliament, there's also Bloc Québécois, they are all opposed. We're having an election in British Columbia in 2015. One of the issues, the reason Stephen Harper and the Conservatives have a majority in Canada is in part because they have 21 members of Parliament from British Columbia. Well, if a bunch of those MPs lose, and Stephen Harper loses his majority government in 2015, then you're going to have a situation where a majority of the MPs are representing parties that oppose the pipeline. So politically, the pipeline may still be canceled. I think the second issue is legally. The First Nations have a lot of legal strength because of various court decisions. There was a court decision in 1990, Supreme Court of Canada, giving them the right to fish for food and ceremonial purposes ahead of other user groups. In 1996, there was a court ruling about Vanderpeet, it was called, dealing with Aboriginal rights and how that fit in with the Constitution. Section 35 of the Constitution affirms the existence of Aboriginal rights. And then 1997, probably the most important court decision in Canadian history was the Delgamuukw ruling, which affirmed the existence of Aboriginal title. So they have a legal right to the land.
Yeah.
So the pipeline is going across the land. That legal right can be infringed on certain circumstances, but there's questions whether, in this case, particularly with regard to Aboriginal rights, if things like pipelines or shipping oil is going to kill all the fish or have an impact on wildlife, breaking up corridors, does that prevent the First Nations people from pursuing their constitutional rights, even if they're as simple as hunting and gathering?
Yeah.
So there are already lots of court cases underway. There's expected to be more. One of the major ones was filed by the Haisla First Nation on the west coast near Kitimat, where the Haisla are saying that the approval with the 209 conditions actually was illegal. So there's already court fights, but there's also going to be a lot of activist fights. One of the major First Nations leaders in British Columbia is Grand Chief Stuart Phillip.
Yeah.
And he stood up at a news conference and he said, the war has begun. So he's saying that the Prime Minister has declared war with this pipeline against the First Nations and against the environment of British Columbia. So this is going to go on for a while. But at the same time, China wants oil,
Yeah.
and Canada has a lot of oil, and the Americans actually buy their oil from Canada at a discounted price because it's the only customer. So this also has an impact on America, because these refiners are getting cheap Canadian oil. They're going to have to pay $20 more per barrel, which is billions of dollars, if this pipeline is approved. So there are lots of players: First Nations, British Columbians, Americans, China, Japan, and also Enbridge itself, and the investors, and CIBC, which is financing Enbridge. So it's a big story.
All right, thank you for the information. And one last question is about what kind of economic impact do you think we'll have, especially in BC, with the pipelines going through us, but we're suffering all the environmental issues. But at the same time, China will join the market as well. So can you comment a little bit on that as well?
Yeah, this is a good question, Polly, because the pipeline at first, the price keeps going up.
Yeah.
Like at first they said 5.5 billion, now they're saying 7.9 billion. We don't know how much this is going to cost. The conditions are going to add more costs. At the same time, China is, it needs oil, it needs energy. It's done a big deal with Russia on the natural gas, but that's not going to do anything for the automobiles in China. So, and China has been doing, has a good relationship with some Middle Eastern countries that are oil suppliers, but Canada is a big, has vast resources. And we've also seen Chinese companies invest in Canada, like Nexen, the Nexen purchase from the state-owned oil company. You've got Husky Oil, of which Li Ka-shing is a major investor. So you've got major Chinese investment in the oil sands, with, one would presume, a goal of bringing some of that oil to China. But the only way right now is through the West Coast. And if British Columbians are blocking pipelines, that could have an effect on the oil getting to China, and that could affect the price that Chinese are paying for their gasoline. That could have an effect on the overall Chinese economy, which as it's trying to grow, it's requiring more energy. And so, China needs resources. And this is one of the aspects of the story that hasn't really been discussed in a really full way in the Canadian media.
Okay, thank you, Charlie, for the information. And oil prices plays a big part in everyone's life. So please keep an eye on these issues as well. And please visit street.com for more information. Thank you.